Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, depending on from where you have joined. Welcome to another webinar by Data Platform Geeks. My name is Rohit, and I will be your host for today. Today's session is on getting started with computer vision API in cognitive services. And our speaker for today is Anupama Natarajan. She is an MVP from New Zealand. And Satya Ramesh will help us with the moderation. eDominer systems, a lot of you already know about eDominer. We have a lot of brands under it, Data Platform Geeks, of which you all are a part of. We do a lot of free events under it, and of course our annual conference, that is Data Platform Summit. We recently concluded Data Platform Summit 2018 in the month of August. We have SQL Maestros, where we do advanced SQL training, and HOLs, which are self-paced online training. We also have Peopleware India, where we train on a lot of other topics. We have an ERP brand called Expand SM ERP. Like I mentioned earlier, Data Platform Summit 2018. We had done it in the month of August. It was a 3-day conference from 9th to 11th, and we had full day pre-con classes from 7th and 8th. We had total of 12 classes. As you can see here, it was a huge success. We had more than 900 people participating from more than 300 companies from 16 countries. And if you look closely, you might find Miss Anupama somewhere here, because she was also a part of DPS 2018. And Data Platform Summit 2019, we are already working towards 2019. It's going to be a 3 days of conference and 3 days of pre-cons this time, 7 tracks, 100 sessions, and 50 speakers. One thing that stands out about Data Platform Summit 2019 is that it's a 100% learning event and 0% marketing. This is the DPG core team: Amit Bansal, founder and president, Manohar Punna, the vice president, and rest of them the regional mentors. We recently also have Vijay Mishra, who has joined in as the regional mentor. These are the eDominer team from Kolkata and Bangalore. This was at the summit this year. You can see the DPG core team and the eDominer teams on stage. Special thanks to Microsoft for supporting us for our community initiatives. You all are a part of DPG community, so you can access all our free videos, labs, magazines, etc. You can visit www.sqlservergeeks.com or dataplatformgeeks.com. Also join the largest SQL group on Facebook and LinkedIn. You can answer or question anything there. We also have a lot of webinar recordings on YouTube, and you can join the community on mobile, that is on the Telegram app. So without any further delay, let's get started with the webinar. Over to you, Anupama. And just one more thing, please do ask your questions in the Q&A panel only. Anupama will answer at the end of the session. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Rohit. I'll just start sharing my screen. So hope you can screen. Rohit, can you confirm that you can see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay, great. Great, thanks, Rohit, and thanks for the good introduction. And yes, of course, I attended the Data Platform Summit early this year, back in August in India. And it is a great summit. And as Rohit mentioned, it's all about learning and providing the learning to the community. And it's nothing to do with in terms of product marketing or anything. So if you haven't attended one this year, then make sure that you attend the Data Platform Summit for next year. Great. So let us get into this topic. So first of all, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on whichever time zone you are in. Currently, the time here in New Zealand is 10:30 p.m. It's a great time to give a webinar. So the topic for today is going to be getting started with the computer vision API in cognitive services. So it is all about making vision easy as well as excellent. So before we get down into the presentation, a little bit about myself. So I'm Anupama Natarajan. So I've been awarded as a Microsoft MVP for Data Platform yearly this year. And I'm a Microsoft certified trainer for around 5 years. And I'm a regular speaker as well as a blogger. And I recently formed a company called Pearl Innovations in New Zealand. And so pretty much I'm just exploring more around what am I going to do with the company. So keep watching the space. So I have around 15 plus years of experience working predominantly in Microsoft technologies. I'm really passionate about data integration and BI. So it's more around how do I expose the data, whether it is going to be through an API or whether it is going to be through some visualization tools, whatever it is, how do we get the meaningful information through the data for our end consumers? That's what I'm really passionate about. As Rohit mentioned, like if you have any questions, feel free to post it onto the Q&A panel, or and I will answer it towards the end of the session. But if for some reason I couldn't able to answer it today, feel free to reach out to me through my LinkedIn or my blog or my Twitter handle, and I'll be responding to your queries. Great. Without any further delay, we can get on to the agenda for today's session. So I'll be just giving you an introduction around what are these cognitive services. So Microsoft have got a set of APIs. What are they really are? And we will just delve deep into one of the API, which is the Vision APIs. And within the Vision APIs, again, you have got a series of APIs available. And very particularly in this session, we'll be learning about Computer Vision API. So what is Computer Vision API, and programmatically, how can you access the API and what you can get out of the API, as well as we will see some practical scenarios where this API can be handy. We will also learn about some of the prerequisites. So if you, after this session, if you want to go down and start creating your own sample application using the Computer Vision API, you need to know how do you get started. So basically, you will get to know about these prerequisites in this session. And also, like there is a series of demos which I want to demonstrate, like what are the things that you can really do with Computer Vision.
Sorry to interrupt you. So we can only see your Azure screen. We cannot able to see your PPTs.
Oh, okay. Sorry. One second. Can you see that now?
No, not yet. We are still seeing your Azure screen, Azure portal.
Okay. Let me stop sharing and share it again. 1 second. Thanks for alerting me. 1 second. Because I was sharing my entire desktop, so just let me know now whether you can see it. Can you see my PPT?
Not yet, not yet. It's showing up started screen sharing, but it didn't show it up yet.
Second.
So we'll just try using duplicate mode. You might have done it extending. Instead of extending mode, we can use PC screen only.
Second, I'll try that. I'm just using PC screen only.
Okay, but still screen is not. Yes, now it is showing up. Yes, it's showing up now.
Can you see the agenda screen?
Yes, yes, agenda screen.
Great. So what I'll do is I'll just zoom this instead of getting into the slideshow mode.
Okay.
Great. Okay, so let me get back to the agenda. So as I said, like there will be a whole series of demos that we'll be covering in this session, mostly related to the Computer Vision API, and also a few references that you can go back and refer to in order to kickstart with your applications. Great. Without any further delay, we will jump on to learn about what's cognitive services. So Microsoft Cognitive Services, they are basically a set of APIs which Microsoft have provided. So previously, before cognitive services, if you as a developer, if you want to incorporate any of these APIs, you have to find out is there any third-party vendors providing these services, and predominantly like you have to go and learn about these third-party services in order to hook it into your application. So Microsoft have known about this, and that's the problem they are trying to solve through cognitive services. As you can see here, there is a wide range of APIs that they are exposing currently, and which you can pretty much utilize in your applications. The application can be a web application, or it can be a bot, or any modern mobile applications that you're trying to build. These are just APIs that you can plug it in, and you can start using the rich functionality of this APIs. So if you look at vision in particular, as you can see, like we have the video indexer API, the computer vision API, which is what this session is about. And we have the face API, emotion API, the content moderator, and the custom vision API. So I have just marked certain APIs as preview. What it basically means is they are still in preview mode and not generally available. You can use it for your development or testing purposes, but not production yet. Because when they are in preview mode, there will be new features and things may be changing. So that's why it's not recommended to use things in production when they are in preview mode. As you can see, that is just the APIs which I was listing for vision. Similarly, for speech, language, knowledge, and search, there is a wide range of APIs available. And this stack doesn't stop from with here. So they keep on adding new APIs as they discover along there are business benefits in exposing them. So this is just an initiative to give an exposure for the first API within the Vision API. But ongoing in future webinars, I may start talking about the rest of the APIs also. So you can get a feel about the things that you can achieve through these APIs. So getting into Vision APIs, as I said, within Vision APIs, there is a variety of APIs that Microsoft exposes. One is around computer vision API. So basically, computer vision API is nothing but you can do a lot more analysis using the images. So nowadays, like images play an important part in everyone's life. Like I still remember, like we went, we 3 of our friends, we went on a holiday, and pretty much we showed a lot of pictures on our trip. So with the modern smartphones and things that we have got, images play an important role. So what this particular Vision API allows us to do is it automatically extracts a lot of information by just scanning through those images. And that is just a simple example of a simple picture gets scanned through and what metadata that the Vision API can provide about that picture. But also if you think about scenarios like every organization has got this issue in terms of like paper-based forms and things. Like now, if you have a paper-based forms in an image format like a PNG or a JPEG, automatically you can use the computer vision API to scan through those documents and extract textual information also. So that is basically around the computer vision API, but also like you have other APIs within the vision APIs like face API, which is to identify and match images from the like photographs or something. To give you an example, Uber has actually implemented face API. So in a practical scenario, basically you can validate the driver who is actually driving the car was the person supposed to be driving the car. So that the face API is predominantly used to validate the drivers by just taking their photograph. Long term, if you think about this, where this can lead into is now you can use face as part of an authentication mechanism also in the future. So if you have a particular area where you want to give access to only through employees working in your company, there is no need hereafter to say like, okay, enter a password or something. They can just scan their face. And if that particular image matches in the catalog of images that you have got in an organization, pretty much you can then authorize the access to that particular area or environment. So this is just a simple use case where the vision APIs are going to play an important role in the modern world. And of course, you have got the content moderator, a lot of like information, like the policies and the legal documents and things. If you want to scan for certain information and say like, okay, does this content is valid for people to be reading through, or if you are looking for some textual information and things, you can scan through using content moderator. And custom vision service, again, you can write some custom applications using this API, which we will see in detail in the subsequent sessions. And finally, the Windows video indexer API. So this is just giving you an overview of the different sets of APIs that are available under Vision APIs. So let us dig down into deep around the computer vision API in this session. So as I said, computer vision API is nothing but a cloud-based API. So with cloud-based API, basically you go under the pay-as-you-go model. So the number of times you call the API, that's what you're going to get charged. And what this basically contains is a series of algorithms for processing images, and basically they return information about the images. We will see what is the type of information that will be returned in the subsequent demos when I'm demonstrating it. But what it is returning is a piece of JSON string, and the JSON string basically contains information about the image, whatever the computer vision API can scan through that particular image. So what are the popular image formats that the computer vision API can work with, or basically JPEGs, PNGs, BMPs, and GIF files. So there are some restrictions in terms of like what should be the size of the image that you can upload to the computer vision API. It should be less than 4 meg, and the dimension should be greater than 50 into 50 pixels. So width and height should be around 50 pixels. That should be the minimum. The reason for that is because it should have enough information in order to scan and interpret that into a valuable information that can be returned back. That's why they have this minimum dimension set. And when it comes to OCR, it's the same thing. Like either it has to be a 50-50 or it has to be 4200 by 4200 pixels. So these are some of the things that you have to keep in mind if you're trying to upload an image to the computer vision API in order to get meaningful information about your image. Great. So in order to start using the computer vision API, basically what are the prerequisites that are required? Of course, you definitely need an Azure subscription. It doesn't need to be a paid Azure subscription. I think now Azure are providing like a free subscription that you can subscribe to in order to just to kickstart with your first project. And basically, then we have to provide like or provision a vision API in that, which I will show shortly in terms of how do you provision that on Azure. And finally, once you provision it, probably the vision API will give you a subscription key and as well as an API endpoint. So basically, you can use that API endpoint in order to make the calls to your vision API, and the subscription key provides as a key mechanism or a password type of thing in order to access to through the right Azure subscription. And finally, of course, you need to have Visual Studio 2017. I think you can use the computer vision API using Visual Studio 2015 plus. And to be more specific, like you can, if you have just a community edition, you can also build applications using the computer vision API using community edition. So you don't need a professional or enterprise edition. You can still build your samples using the community edition. So let us quickly jump on to Azure just to show like how you can provision the computer vision API. So I have just got a sample resource group called webinars. I have already provisioned here a vision API. But if you want to provision a new one, basically under your resource group, click on add. And you can search the marketplace and you can just type for computer vision. So there you go. So what you can see is the computer vision API. And of course you have to, in order to create that, you have to provide some parameters. And we'll be quickly seeing that on the screen here. Great. So you need to provide a name for the API, the subscription under which you need to create, and of course the locations where it is available. So always make a note of the locations where what is the nearest location that you can access this API from based on your current location, and the pricing tier. So I pretty much use the F01 because I don't need more than 20 calls per minute. But if you can go for, if you are frequently going to access this particular API, you have the other pricing model, which is around 10 calls per second. And finally, the resource group under which you want to create the API. So I have already created one here, which I can click on. So I can see here, this is the vision API I have already created. So once the API has been provisioned, great. So once the API has been provisioned, basically you can see the keys here. So these are the couple of keys that are available for my vision API, which I can regenerate if I need to. And in the overview screen, you can also see the endpoint that you can use in order to invoke this API. So as you can see here, I have provisioned the computer vision API to the Australia East location, and that's why you can see that in my endpoints straight away. So this is the first thing that you have to do in terms of provisioning the vision API. As I mentioned, the keys as well as the endpoint is the key one that we need to have in order to utilize in our application. Great. Let us jump on to our slides back here. So as we have seen, we have set the prerequisites already. So what are the basic aspects that we get out of a computer vision API? So what are the things we can really do is we can do image classification and identification using this API. So if you use the computer vision API and if you have a photograph and you have a bit of set of celebrities that are available in photographs, automatically the API will also identify, okay, this and so celebrity is appearing on this photograph. So it's not about just identifying the objects in the photograph, but if that particular person is supposed to be a celebrity, and I think the catalog Microsoft has more than around 200,000 celebrities that they can identify using this API currently. So that is the main thing, main aspect of the computer vision API. The second thing is it can also do thumbnail generation. So if you if you upload a photograph and probably or an image, then if you want to generate a thumbnail of a particular dimension, you can specify that to the API and it automatically creates the thumbnail of the image. And I don't know like how much historically we used to write applications in order to do thumbnail images. Now it's just an API that we need to invoke, that's it. The final thing, this is the most interesting thing of all the things I have been looking at from a computer vision API perspective, which is the text recognition. I have been in the IT industry for more than 15 years now. And one of the fundamental problems, each and every organization, not just in New Zealand, I would say across the world, is dealing with paper-based forms and handwritten forms. I think like handwritten forms are the worst thing, I think, in terms of how do you scan them, or even if it is a printed information on the form, how do you scan the text out of that information? So that is the fundamental problem which computer vision API can really solve. So you can provide an image with either printed information or handwritten information, and automatically the text out of that particular form can be extracted and it can be provided, and which you downstream you can use it to automate your applications. So that is one of the fundamental, I think, a feature which computer vision API provides that is going to be really an important aspect for organizations to use in the future. Great. So when we talk about image classification and identification, what can it do really? So for instance, like it can use tags to give some visual features. For instance, like I have a building in the photograph. It will identify and tell me that there is a building in the photograph, or there is a piece of grass sitting in the photograph. So it can identify some of these objects and it can tag accordingly. And also like it can describe the features of an image, saying, for instance, whether two kids are sitting on a chair, or there is a piece of grass in front of a house. So these type of information that can be scanned and as well as described as a JSON output by the computer vision API. It also can classify, detect the images, like whether it's a PNG or the type of images that we have got, the color scheme within the image, whether it has got a dark background or a white background, and also like some domain specific content. So these things we will be just seeing that in a subsequent demo, because it is easy try to explain these classification and identification features through this demo. So without any further delay, we can jump on to our first demo. So the first demo is basically around how do we actually analyze and extract visual information from an image. So basically, you can achieve this in two ways, and I will be demoing both the scenarios here. So the first scenario is about using the .NET SDK. And using .NET SDK is basically mean like we will just apply the NuGet packages for the computer vision API into our application. And then we can see like how can you invoke the computer vision API using the SDK. And the demo 2 is basically going to be doing the same thing, but instead of using the .NET SDK, we'll be looking at using the REST API that has been exposed. So we'll look at it's the same demo, but I think we will be using two different methods in terms of accessing the API. Okay, let us quickly jump into the demo. So here is a set of demos that I have got for today's session. So the first one is around the computer vision. How do we utilize the computer vision API using the .NET SDK? A simple console application, and I have got a couple of images here. I'll quickly jump and show that here so you can get to see the images. So there are two images that we are going to see here. So as you can see, it's just a house. In front of that, there is a bit of grass around this image. So this is the first one. And the second one is two kids sitting on a chair. So these are the two images that we are going to use in our demo. And we can see like what information that we get out of the computer vision API when we try and pass these two images to that. So as usual, we need an API key, which normally we get it as part of provisioning the computer vision service. And of course, we need an endpoint. As I said, I have provisioned the service on Australia East location. So that's why this is my endpoint I'm utilizing. As I mentioned, because this is utilizing the .NET SDK, the first thing I need to, as you can see here, I have imported the NuGet package, which is the Azure Cognitive Services Vision Computer Vision package. So this is the NuGet package. First thing I have to import it in order to utilize the computer vision API. So once the package is imported, pretty much what I have to do is I have to call the analyze image method. So this method is basically saying like, okay, analyze the image which I'm going to pass and make sure you provide me the following features as output. So pretty much I have asked for all the metadata that the computer vision API can provide about that image that I'm uploading. So give me all the description, the categories, the color, the faces that you can recognize, the image types, the tags, as well as whether it has got the adult content or not. So and pretty much here, I'm just printing out the output of that particular image. So this is as simple as such. Like what I'm really passing here is just the house.jpg, which is pretty much the previous image here. So now I'm going to run the application to see what computer vision API is going to give as description about that image. Let me quickly run this. Great. So basically here, as you can see, the image can be described as a large lawn in front of a house. And as I said, this is the image that we uploaded to the computer vision API, which makes sense. And also like the tags, it also gives like around grass, outdoor. So this gives the confidence level. I think the confidence level is pretty much is really important because the higher the confidence level, then probably you can make some automated tasks based on that confidence level rather than reconfirming it with the user or something. A classic example is like if you're just talking to an operator or so automated system or something, probably you would have just talked about a few words, and if the confidence level of those words are up to a certain percentage, then probably you can automate the process. And if it's something is not clear or if the confidence level is low, then you can automatically pass that to an operator instead of the automated message handling the call further. So that's a classic example where the confidence levels can be handy. So here, if it says like I have to do such and such logic, if there is a grass in the image. So based on the confidence level, you can make the call saying, okay, if the confidence level is more than this much percentage, then probably now I can go ahead and apply. There is definitely grass in the image. So which means I can apply the business logic associated with that. So that's where the confidence level are going to be handy for you. And of course, the primary colors on the image are green and white, which you can see here. Predominantly, that's what a lot here is on the image. Great. And the image type is non-line drawing. So basically like there are different types of image that you can get. Let me quickly show that here. So whether it's a clip art, or it says an ambiguous image or a non-clip art. So you can just specifically find out what image type you have got, and automatically that particular enum will be returned by the computer vision API. So when you look at here, pretty much it's just really a straightforward. So I didn't have to write a much lines of code in order to analyze a particular image here. So what we are trying to do in the next example is pretty much the same thing, which is around analyzing the image, but how do we use that using the REST API? So for this particular one, I have a few images that are sitting here. Let me quickly show them. So same thing, I have got a subscription key and a URL that I need to handle. So this URL will be different because here I'm saying use the Vision API version 2.0 and use the analyze endpoint here. So pretty much the analyze endpoint basically will do the analysis of the uploaded or the image that I'm passing on, and probably gives the information about that image. So I'm making the REST API call for the make analysis request. So basically this is making the call, and here I'm passing the parameters saying what particular metadata information I need out of the image. So here it's categories and description, the color, and finally I just send I make the call to the API and get the response, and I'm reading through that. So basically the REST API is going to give me a series of JSON, and I'm going to interpret that, print that JSON to give me that metadata information. So for this particular example, I have got a series of images that I have got here. Great. So I have got a series of images, the same images we saw in the previous example, and I have got an image of a celebrity here, Sachin Tendulkar, and I also got an image which is a combination of Sachin Tendulkar along with his son as well as with his whole family. So as you can see here, what we are going to do is we are going to give a try of passing these images and see what the computer vision API is going to provide us. So let us jump on running this demo. So here, the first example, what I'm passing on here is just the Sachin Tendulkar as a celebrity image. So this is the image I'm passing, and let us see whether the API recognizes that and whether it determines the celebrity. So it's actually starting to analyze the image here. Great. So as you can see here, first thing, the caption comes as Sachin Tendulkar wearing a blue shirt. So it has determined that the image is actually Sachin Tendulkar. And as I said, the computer vision API can recognize up to 200,000 celebrities. So it has automatically detected the photo. It is a photograph of a celebrity, and the confidence level of it is detection, and the attributes or the coordinates for the face, and the color of the image, as well as the tag description, like what are the different tags that are associated with the image, and finally, the caption of the image. As you can see, it has automatically detected Sachin Tendulkar. So I was so curious, and what I thought was like, okay, so it detected Sachin Tendulkar. How about Sachin Tendulkar along with his son? So this should be whether I'm more curious to find out whether it detects Sachin Tendulkar as a celebrity here, as well as is it going to detect so the Arjun Tendulkar is going to be his son. So is it going to detect that? So I was so curious about taking this image also. So let me quickly comment this and pass the second image, which is Sachin Tendulkar along with his son. So I'm not sure, I was surprised what the output I got to see when I was running this demo, but I think hopefully you'll be surprised too to see what output we are going to get for this one. Great, I think I'm so curious. I don't know why it is thinking too much. Great. It didn't detect Sachin Tendulkar at all. So it didn't detect the celebrity. It didn't detect anything other than saying a person in a baseball game. So this image, actually, it recognized it as a baseball game. It neither recognized as Sachin Tendulkar. I'm not sure what was the reason for that. Is that because he was wearing a cap, or what is the reason for that? I'm not really sure. So I just wanted to give a try a bit more and say like, okay, let me take a family photo of Sachin Tendulkar. And this time I want to just give a try saying like, okay, in the first image, it recognized because it was just Sachin Tendulkar himself. So if I have a group of people in a photograph, and whether the computer vision API can automatically detect a celebrity in that particular photograph. So I was so curious about that. Okay, let me take this family photograph as an example and give a try. So definitely the previous photograph didn't work. The first one it detected, the second one it didn't detect at all. So let us try the third one and see whether it is getting detected or not. So let me quickly replace now with the third image. Great, now we try and do this. Great, if it was a live audience participation, then I would have asked the questions, but feel free to put your answers in the comments to see what you think like you'll be getting to see in the output. Great, it detected Sachin Tendulkar this time, and the confidence level is also high. So basically, as you can see here, it picked up the celebrity. So only conclusion I could come out of this was, so from an image perspective, let me get back. So the difference between what I can see here is it's not about the number of people in the photograph, it's more around maybe he was wearing a cap and it couldn't recognize his face, facial expressions through that. But even if it is in a group, I think the celebrity can be, the computer vision API is able to determine the celebrity information. So that was clearly evident when I tried, that's what clearly evident from the 3 different photographs that I tried and played with that here. So what it basically tells us is like you can go and detect the celebrity information also from a photograph, and if that's what you're going to detect with. So if I don't know like what use cases may be really handy in your scenarios for this one, but I think what you can do is if you're looking for a particular celebrity to be appearing in a photograph, and if you want to detect that as a background process, yes, of course you can do that. The another handy thing is more around the type of content. Sometimes like some photographs may contain adult content, and you might want to cut short and doesn't need to be filtered from your emails or the image getting sent to the kids or anyone. So you can achieve that using computer vision API itself. So basically what it will do is it will give you the tags saying like, okay, whether the photograph has got adult content or not, and you can make the decision based on whether the image needs to be passed subsequently or whether it needs to be blocked. And I think that will be a really handy use case that anyone wants to use it in order to detect those images. Great, let us get back to our slides. So as I have explained, there are 2 demos that we see. So you can either use the REST API directly, or if your preference is use the .NET SDK, of course you can just download the NuGet packages associated with the computer vision API, and straight away you can start incorporating it in your application. So the other example we were talking about is what else the computer vision API can do other than just scanning through an image and providing some metadata information about the image. It can also do thumbnail generation. And I said like the thumbnail generation, it can do some sort of smart cropping. So you can specifically say like which areas, how you want to crop that particular image into a thumbnail, and automatically the computer vision API will give you an output of the cropped image. And also like you can specify the regions of interest, saying like, okay, I want these coordinates in the image need to be cropped and needs to be created as a thumbnail. That can also be addressed. And also you can use the change aspect ratio. It is not going to change the aspect ratio of the original image. Your original image is still going to be the same, but you can specify a new aspect ratio for your thumbnail image. And I think at the time of the thumbnail image getting generated, it will apply the new aspect ratio. So I wasn't so thrilled about thumbnail generation, to be honest. Like we have been doing this historically in one way or the other using .NET, but I was more interested in exploring more the text recognition capability of computer vision API. So when it comes to text recognition API, OCR is something that we all know, like the optical character recognition. So how can you recognize the character from images? That's really important. and which I think computer vision API can do that successfully. So it can recognize up to 25 languages, and it can also, you can specify like whether you want the image to be rotated and then the text need to be extracted, and it also automatically detects the language of the extracted text. So you don't need to specify, okay, whether the image will have English or some other language. You can just say like, okay, it's unknown language, you detect it automatically, and then the computer vision API will detect the language itself automatically. And finally, it can also recognize the handwritten text. So what we are going to do is in the next 2 subsequent demos, we'll be looking at how can we extract the information from an image using the OCR capability. And these 2 examples, we will be going down the REST API path. If you want to use the SDK, you can still use the SDK without any issues. So final demo is going to be the extraction of the information from a handwritten image. The previous one was just a OCR image where it has got printed information, and the last one is basically the handwritten information. So before we jump on to the solution, I will show the images that we are going to play with. So let us see the OCR first. Great. So basically, this is just a printed book image. So what we are going to do is pass this image to the computer vision API and say like, okay, extract the text out of this image and give it to me. And so then you can use that text in order to further do whatever business rules that you want to apply on that. So this is the image that we are going to pass. Let us jump on to the API here. Great. As usual, we have the subscription key and the URL base. So the main thing here to remember here is with this API, the endpoint which we are calling is OCR. So I don't know how much of you noticed. So if you look at the API here, we are using analyze. So as you can see, the analyze is the endpoint that we are using here. So this is the analyze endpoint. So, but when you get into the OCR capability, so basically what we are seeing here is the OCR endpoint. So that's the only change that we have done. The rest of the URLs are still the same. And we are actually passing on this image. We'll close the rest of the ones to avoid the confusion. So this is the book image which are going to pass, and we are expecting the computer vision API to extract the text out of this image and provide it to us. So the rest of the calls are still the same. Instead of extract image, I have got the OCR request here. I'm just passing on. And here I have specifying the languages English, but if you're not sure about what is the language, you can just pass UNK. UNK denotes unknown. So while I'm saying that, there is another important URL. So which I will quickly show. So as you can see here, this is the computer vision API documentation. So if you, the different endpoints which I'm talking here about, like you can call the OCR endpoint, analyze endpoint. For instance, like if you want to get thumbnail of an image endpoint, get handwritten text. So all those endpoints are exposed here, and what are the parameters that you can pass? It's all listed here. And what is the response? You can also get the response JSON. So I have added this link into the references section. And if you want to try this in different languages, also you have samples here that you can utilize. Great. Getting back to our example here for the OCR. So let us quickly now run this example. Before I do that, let me change my startup project here. Great. Let me run the OCR. So what we are expecting is the text from that particular book image need to be extracted and provided as JSON. So it is actually sending the image to the computer vision API, and shortly we'll get the output of that image. Great. As you can see here, it says Microsoft.NET microservices architecture for containerized .NET applications. Cesar de la Torre, Bill Wagner. Great. I'm not going to keep on reading this, and pretty much it has recognized the authors, including the Microsoft Corporation, and all the text that it could see and has been extracted here. So as you can see here, like a simple OCR endpoint, just passing the image, you get the entire information outputted as a JSON string. So this is normally with the OCR capability. But the next thing is always the handwritten information is always the tricky one. So the handwritten information still has some limitations. So let me make it clear, it is not perfect yet. And as you know, this is still in preview mode. So depending on if it has a really dull background or the ink that you have used is really light, still it has got problems in detecting at this point. So keep that in mind. It's not perfect yet, but just keep on watching the space. So as you can see here, this is a simple handwritten information, and we are going to pass this image and see whether it can extract the text out of this handwritten information. So this is the image that we have got for the final demo here for the handwritten one. So again, this is using the REST API. So let us quickly jump to the sample one. Great. So the key thing to notice here, so as you can see, so we are using the retract endpoint, the OCR endpoint, and now the recognized endpoint basically pretty much is used to extract the handwritten information from images. So I'm just passing on my handwritten.jpg here and pretty much making the API calls, getting the JSON, and then printing it on the console application. That's what this application really does. So let us quickly run this example. Great. So it found fighting, stop fighting, which is pretty much what you can see here. And so it is extracting all the words. So it basically saying the text is you don't stop. So as long as how slowly you go. And the only thing I could say that it missed was it doesn't matter, the R was missed. I don't know whether it wasn't able to recognize this as an R, but it was able to recognize the rest of the text here. So pretty much it's not bad. It has been successfully able to recognize the lines of text from this particular image. And this is going to be handy for a lot of extracting handwritten information, or if you want to handle OCR information and pass it on to downstream applications. There are a lot of use cases which I have already starting to hear from people saying where this can be handy in real world scenarios. And just keep in mind, if people are writing information and if you want to just import that handwritten information into your systems, there you go, out of the box, hook it up with the computer vision API, extract the text, pass the JSON, and push it to your target system. So if you have simple use cases like that, this is going to be handy. Great. So these are some of the 4 examples which I really wanted to show in terms of what are the things that you can really do. So there are other things which I haven't got a demo here, but you can really do, or around the thumbnail generation of your images. And also you can try with a wider range of images that you can try and apply. So for instance, you can jump onto Google, take some images, try and upload it and see, just to get a pattern of learning which images are getting recognized, what is the confidence level that is coming through, and so on. Or you can even take it doesn't need to be a celebrity image or something. Take your own image and try to do this. Try to analyze the photographs that you have taken personally, because that will help you to more relate to the image, and you can also see what is the confidence level that you are getting for the different aspects of the image. It was really interesting when you try and analyze with lots of images. And I will recommend you to try and more do that, because then you will start learning about how the API is actually working under the hood. Great. As I promised, I think here are some of the URLs that will allow you to get started after this session. So the first one is basically the API endpoints, which I showed, the documentation of the computer vision API. So what are the different endpoints you have got and how can you call them? And there is some sample code associated for each and every programming language through which you can call this particular endpoints. The second one is basically the documentation for the cognitive services. And this is really going to be handy. Let me quickly show you if you really want to jump into and to play with. So see, you can see some of these examples here. So there are some celebrity images that you want to just go and play with that. Feel free to jump onto this website, hit on vision, and you can see some realistic demos here straight away. So this is all free demos that you can go and try using how do I use for computer vision. And the final thing is around how do you get started. So this is some sample applications that will help you to get started with the computer vision API. So let me quickly get this. Great, there you go. So you can, how do you analyze the image? What are the tags, the JSON that you can get out of it? And you can just upload a simple image and keep trying here. So how do you read the text in images? So how do you preview a handwritten image? And how can you, so you can upload some celebrity photos and you can see like how a celebrity can be detected. So they have built this application instead of writing a single line of code, you can try practicing uploading a few images and you can get a feel about what the computer vision API can provide to you. Great, so that's pretty much I wanted to cover off in this session. So hopefully you would have got an idea in terms of like if you want to get started with computer vision API, what do you need to have as prerequisites? And there are multiple ways of calling your API. So either you can go down through the SDK route or you can just call the REST API directly. And there are different endpoints that are being exposed in terms of what you really want to do with computer vision API. Do you want to do analysis over printed text, handwritten text, or do you really want to understand the information about the image itself? Then you can call the appropriate endpoint to get the relevant output. So finally, it's just all about questions. I will just quickly jump on the Q&A panel to see what are the questions that are sitting there.
Anupama, just give me 2 minutes. I have some slides to share with the audience.
Okay, sure.
Yes.
So I'll stop sharing here once again.
Yes.
Great. Go ahead, Rohit.
Thank you. All right, great. So if you have any questions, you can always post it on the Facebook group, like I said earlier, the LinkedIn and Telegram as well. A word from our sponsor, SQL Maestros. We do a lot of trainings on SQL Server and Microsoft Data Platform, hands-on lab, etc. You can write to us at classes at SQL Maestros if you have any queries. And we are coming up with something called the master classes. We have been doing it for a lot of years now, and now we are going online. We have tied up with some of the best trainers all over the world, and they will be taking sessions for 8 hours, and that will be 4 hours each day. So you can write to us with your queries again at classes@sqlmaestros.com. And HOLs, like I said, hands-on labs. As you are already members of Data Platform Geeks, you can access a few free demos to see how it works. And once again, thank you so much for all of your time. Thank you, Anupama. See you again on 30th. And yes, guys, Satya will be dropping a link where you can give your feedback about this session. Your feedback is really valuable to us, so please do go ahead and give us your feedback. Once again, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you.
Great. Rohit, can I look through the Q&As now? Or?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. You can go ahead with the Q&A.
Okay, so the first question is basically, do you have OCR for other languages like Hindi, etc.? So I'm not sure whether exactly Hindi, but there are around 25 languages it supports, but I can just extract the list because they keep on adding additional languages as we speak along, but I will try and get the list of languages currently it supports. If the vision API returns some incorrect value that can be tuned using, yes, you can. So what you can do is the output that you are getting from the API is the starting point, but you can tunnel it to anything like you can flow or a logic app. You can, there are endless opportunities when you tunnel it to machine learning or something.